As I reflect on my life journey, I can only be filled with a sense of gratitude, and mainly for two reasons. One is that I am alive. The second part is that I have achieved the things that I have set my mind to achieve. The younger, immature me made choices and decisions in the past that could have compromised my life or could have reversed all the gains that I had already achieved. My name is Botaki Hlalele. I'm a life coach on a mission to cultivate personal mastery and self-worth in others. I'm saying these things because I truly believe that all of us, we deserve three things in our lives. One, to live meaningful lives. Two, to live fulfilling lives. And three, to live abundant lives. And usually when somebody talks about abundance, for some people, what comes to mind is money. But here I'm talking about ensuring that the four fortitudes of your life are integrated. The first one is your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your emotional fortitudes. They should be aligned so that you can live the best version of yourself. And as the name of this podcast says, which is Dreams Made Possible, I believe that your dreams are realizable. Your dreams can be achieved, but only within the confines of what you put your mind to, within the confines of your values, but also within the confines of the strengths and talents that you use so that you can achieve your dreams. But as part of this podcast, I would just like to unpack just a few things that I believe stand in our dreams. And the first one is all about how we sabotage ourselves. We sabotage ourselves by putting or by making choices, by behaviors that ultimately get in the way of those things that we want to achieve. And this is exactly the reason why I started this podcast, because I truly believe that we all deserve three things. We deserve to live meaningful lives, fulfilling lives, and lives of abundance. And just from my experience, when one talks about abundance, I have realized that people default to the issue of finances. Is it critical? Very, very critical. I don't denounce that. But what I mean from my operational context, abundance is about ensuring that there's integration between your physical, your spiritual, your mental, and emotional fortitudes. Once all those four are aligned, you become the best version of yourself. I'm a South African that loves his country at heart. And this is one country where we are endowed with minerals. And the last time I checked, we had at least 26 different types of minerals. And the reason why I'm bringing the issue of minerals, one is because the minerals are extracted deep down inside from the belly of the earth. Life is like that as well. Once you tap inside yourself and take out what God has put into you, then you become the best version of yourself. That is important, and I would always like you to take this away if you were to forget everything that I have said on this particular podcast. And I would like to tap you on your shoulder and say, this is just a reminder that you are invaluable beyond imagination. You are richer than the mineral mines of South Africa. But now, there are a few reasons that I would like to unpack, maybe two or three, why we always do not achieve the goals that we achieve. And this is the essence of this podcast, to be able to unearth these things from the life stories of my guests so that you can also craft your own story and become a better version of yourself. Let's dive into those things. The first one is self-sabotage. Most of us, we have a default setting of looking at the outside world and say, the government, my mother, my father, my brother, my neighbor, or even blame the dog next door why you don't achieve most of your goals. But in most cases, the reality is you are your own worst enemy. And that is why I say we self-sabotage. We put things in front of us that are going to ensure that we don't achieve things that we are intending to achieve. Psychologists call this concept sometimes self-handicapping. That's when you enter into behaviors or you make choices that will scupper some of the plans that you should be achieving, so that you can point to those things as the reasons why you cannot achieve the goals that you are achieving. But like I said, we sabotage ourselves through the choices that we make. And part of this podcast is about vulnerability. Brene Brown speaks a lot about vulnerability. And she says most people think that being vulnerable or invulnerable is a strength. But being vulnerable is a strength, it's not a weakness. So one of the decisions that the immature younger me took was a decision that I took to ramble with alcohol. That was a fight that I lost before it started. I should not have gone there. And I am unpacking it in my book that I have written, how I have battled with this nemesis, which is alcohol. And when I look at other things around that time that were falling, whether it's troubles with finances or not achieving certain things that I wanted to achieve, there was just one common denominator: alcohol. So I had to stand back and say, this is one best way, polished, that I'm using to sabotage myself. And it is with that realization that I had to start to make a move to be able to achieve my dreams. Which leads me to a second point. And the second point is, how do you go beyond the pain? And why I say the pain? Because if you have, and I'm just using this as an example, you probably have got your own example. When I use the example of alcohol, for me it was a pain. Because you're doing it, it appears as something that is nice at the beginning, but the end is always excruciating. So it is about identifying that thing that causes a pain in your life so that you can go beyond it. But then how do you go beyond this pain? You go beyond this pain by doing what we call an inner job. But before we get into an inner job, let me just reflect on the words of Bing Caballero. And Bing Caballero says, man, just like a compass needle, will wamble until he finds his true north. It's about you finding your true north. But now, how do you find your true north? It does not come through a process of osmosis. It comes with a deliberate effort of doing the inner job. When a car is not functioning well, they strip it to its bare parts, which are inside. A car is not fixed in the internal. The same with us. We can be able to fix ourselves only if we jump inside ourselves, so that we can get to the root causes of why we experience the things that we experience in our lives. And there are two things that I would just like to point out in this space. Is the whole issue of reflection. Face the person in the mirror. Once you start facing the person in the mirror, the conversation happens with the person in the mirror. There's no neighbor, there's no government, there's no partner, there's no dog from the neighbor that is making noise. It's about you and the person that you see in the mirror. And unfortunately, that person that you see in the mirror happens to be you. And that is where the honest conversation has got to start. And if you allow yourself to venture into that conversation, two things happen. The nature of your self-talk starts to change. And when I say the nature of your self-talk starts to change, is because most of us, and not even most of us, all of us as human beings, the mind is structured in such a way that it is continuously operating. And 90%, 95% of what the mind says, according to the neuroscientists, always is negative. So we have to be alert all the time to arrest the negativity and then change the negative things that the mind is telling us. So once we change that narrative that the mind is giving us, then our lives will start to change better. The moment we engage in positive self-talk, that is when your life will take root and the trajectory of your life will start to become better. So that is the first part of reflection. It comes from the self-talk. But the second part of the reflection comes from the feedback that you get from others. There is also no richer way to grow than to act on the feedback that you get. For some people, maybe it's better to go through certain experiences so that you can feel, as we say, through your skin for you to be able to make your change. However, there's also a better way to learn from the experiences of others. So it's valuable to look at others and the experiences they've gone through so that you can cut short the lessons that would lead you to pain. So get the feedback from others, what they're saying about you, learn to deal with that feedback so that you can become a better version of yourself. So those two things for me are very important. Self-sabotage and how you go beyond the pain. But the third element, once you have spoken to yourself, once you have reflected and you are charting a new way of life, what will cement that is about purpose. It becomes cliche for most of us because we wake up every day and we hear the word purpose, purpose, purpose. But that is the center of our lives. When I borrow from the words of Robin Sharma, he says, the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. And I truly believe that. But probably your question to me will be, how do I achieve or how do I identify my purpose? I would say to you, let's not dream too big beyond ourselves and want to change everything in the world. You change the world where you are, and that is where you get your purpose. But there are three intersections where your purpose lies. The first one is your competence. The second one is your passion. The third one is the need that you would like to solve using your competence and your passion. Once those three things come together, they produce a bigger purpose for your life. Maybe your purpose might be to go sing to kids at the kindergarten and it gives you life. Why not? Maybe you are employed, but you get more juices flowing when you paint. You can do that after your work. My passion is to impact people, is to cultivate personal mastery and self-worth in others. And when I don't do that, my body cringes. My body becomes small inside because we are gifted with this mechanism that gives us this particular feedback. But when I do this job, like I'm now talking to you, my body expands. I become more lively. And that is the value of purpose. And we don't have in reality, go out to get this feedback. Our body will give that feedback for us all the time. So I'm intending to come to you every week with this podcast. I would invite guests who are going to share their life stories. And not because they know better, but only because they are willing to share the life experiences that they have gone through. And for you, it is to listen and learn from their life stories so that you can craft your own journey and become a better version of yourself. I hope you are going to form part of this community of dreamers and help us grow this podcast called Dreams Made Possible. Come and join this journey by clicking on the link below so that we together can share life lessons 101 for greater conversations. Thank you so much.